All right, welcome. Today we're going to become time travelers of a sort, but for culture. We're going to explore a really powerful hidden force that shapes how we all see the world, how we make decisions, and even how we think about the future. So let's dive right in. Okay, let me start by asking you something a little strange. Have you ever worked really, really hard? Maybe you aced a math test, but you didn't really feel that proud of it. You just thought, I could have done better. Well, what if that feeling isn't just about you? What if it's actually a reflection of your entire culture? And what if, and this is the crazy part, that same feeling is a secret key to economic power? Let's find out. You see, under the surface of our everyday lives, there's this kind of hidden cultural code. It's almost like an operating system that's running in the background all the time. And this code decides how we relate to time itself, whether we're constantly focused on the distant future or if we're more focused on past traditions and what's happening right now. Today, we're going to unlock that code together. So, researchers have a name for this hidden code. They call it a cultural dimension. Just think of it like a spectrum or a scale. It measures a society's relationship with time. On one end of the scale, you've got a focus on the future, and on the other end, you've got a focus on the past and the present. So let's start with one side of that scale. It's called long-term orientation, or LTO for short. Now, cultures with a high LTO score, they value things that are going to pay off way down the road. This is not about quick wins. It's all about playing the long game. The focus here is on things like perseverance, saving your money for the future, and being willing to adapt to whatever comes your way to meet those long-term goals. And then on the complete opposite end, you've got short-term orientation, or STO. In these cultures, the focus is all on the now and the before. These societies really cherish tradition, they emphasize national pride, and they put a lot of importance on fulfilling your social duties right now. It's about honoring the past and taking care of the present. And this is where these big ideas get really practical. In a long-term oriented culture, for example, good and evil might seem a little more relative. It depends on the situation. And traditions, well, they can be changed if they need to be. But in a short-term oriented culture, nope. The rules are much more absolute, and traditions are sacred. You just don't touch them. These are two totally different ways of seeing the world. Okay, so that's the theory, but how does all this stuff actually play out in the real world? Let's take a look at how it impacts everything from school to business to the economy. So researchers actually went and scored countries on this, from 0 to 100, and what they found were these really clear patterns. East Asian nations, like South Korea, Japan, and China, they consistently score super high on long-term orientation. But then you look at countries like the United States and Mexico, and they tend to score much, much lower, leaning way more towards that short-term view. And these scores, believe me, they have a massive impact on the economy. Think about it. In high LTO cultures, companies are often totally fine with sacrificing profits today to gain market share over many, many years. They're playing the long game for dominance. But in low LTO cultures, the focus is all about this quarter's bottom line. Getting immediate results for the shareholders is absolutely key. And this one difference changes everything. So let's circle all the way back to our question about math at the beginning. Well, research shows that students from those high LTO cultures often do better in math, but they're also way more humble about it. Why? Because the culture values perseverance more than personal pride. It's about the effort. On the flip side, students in low LTO cultures might score a bit lower, but express way more confidence, because the cultural value there is a positive self-image. So you see, it's not really about who is smarter. It's about what the culture tells you is important. Okay, this cultural code is clearly really powerful, but that brings up a huge question. Are these values basically set in stone, or can they actually change over time? Well, the original theory argues that these time orientations are incredibly stable. The idea is that they're passed down from our parents to us as kids, and they get deeply rooted by the time we're teenagers. In fact, as Hofstede himself put it, these core values, once you learn them, they very rarely change later in life. And, the data seems to back this up. Studies have shown that the LTO rankings for 15-year-olds in a country are nearly identical to adults. But here's the really wild part. One study compared data from 30 years apart and found that even with the internet and globalization, the relative positions of all the countries didn't really change. The technology changed, for sure, but the deep core values people used, they stayed pretty stable. But we have to ask ourselves, is that still true today?
I mean, in a world with AI, global social media, and just constant, rapid change, can these deeply ingrained cultural values really stay untouched forever? Or are we maybe on the verge of a really big shift?
That is a huge question to think about. But for right now, let's just quickly summarize the 3 key takeaways from our journey today. First, just understand this main idea. Cultures have different time orientations. They either prioritize future rewards, which is LTO, or they prioritize past and present traditions, which is STO. Second, you can apply this knowledge and see how this one time travel mindset shapes literally everything, from your math class to the global economy. And finally, number 3, it's important to question it. While these values are super deep and stable, their future in our fast-changing world, well, that's still very much up for debate.
And that leads us to a few questions for you to discuss. First, just think about your own daily life here in Korea. Where do you see examples of these long-term or short-term mindsets at play? And second, what do you think the future holds? Do you believe technology and globalization will eventually just make all cultures more similar? Or will these deep values, these hidden codes, stick around? Thanks for watching.